Welcome to our Sunday Strength. I hope you guys are all doing well and enjoying your Sunday. Today, I want to talk about a common relationship conversation, which is about building trust inside of our relationships. And so, a lot of times, the challenge is trying to figure out when something has gone wrong or when things aren't where they need to be. How do I trust that person? And we're going to look at the myths that actually make it difficult for us to build trust, and then the things that will help us to align our relationship with interactions that will help us to be trustworthy in our relationship and then have tons of trust in our relationship. So let's look at first these myths that happen, and they're not as much myths as they are scenarios that they depend too much on another person doing the right thing, or us becoming the judge of what somebody else is doing for us to figure out whether we trust or not. And that's kind of a key difference in our life, is can we take control over our life by understanding where we have control over and being able to focus on those things. So one of the first things is, and it's not that these things aren't useful. So if it's useful in your relationship to do it this way, then use it. It just won't be the ultimate, right? So one of the first things is being able to acknowledge the breach. And actually, what I find is that the more that we acknowledge the breach, at first trust gets a little bit more challenging, then it gets easy. But long term, I think it's helpful for us to, one, as people, do things that are trustworthy, and that you're willing to say what you're doing, and then two, to be able to accept that when I don't do those things, I'm going to have to share it. And so that's a really useful idea or way to think about that. It's just that that's not the thing that brings on the trust. The second thing is having an open, honest relationship. And so I think it's really useful. In fact, I encourage my couples to choose open, honest over safe, dishonest relationships. But it's not that brings on trust immediately. Again, I think the more honest and open we are about things that go on for us or with us, those things get scary for each other. And so that's not the trust building exercise. It is a relationship practice that's going to be useful long term. It's just not going to build the trust the way that we need to be able to build the trust. So after we talk about open and honest, a lot of times the idea is, well, you need to set boundaries and expectations. And I've talked before in videos about setting boundaries and expectations. And the challenge with us setting boundaries and expectations a lot of times is that we're telling somebody else how to behave, and then we're allowing ourselves to be the follower, or the one who decides afterwards, okay, you show me what you're going to do, and then I know what I'm going to do. And I would say it's not useful to set boundaries with somebody else. It's useful for you to set boundaries with yourself and to build around those. And fortunately, as we create that in our environments, then it's helpful for the person who we're in relationship with to raise the level of their being, if we can continue to do the same kind of thing for ourselves. And so you set the boundaries with yourself and everything changes, but you set the boundaries with somebody else, and now you're kind of in a cat mouse game. Like, I told them this would be the last time, or there won't be another opportunity for them. If that's the case, now I have to play by, okay, if you do something else, it's I'm done, right? And that's no way to live, because now you're constantly searching for trying to make that boundary happen, and then when it comes, you had a decision to make. And instead, I would say the best thing is for you to set boundaries with yourself, with who you're going to be and what it is that you want to have happen in your life. We're going to get to the 4 things that are actually going to be helpful. But another step that I think people usually try to use is the idea that if you're just consistent with your actions, right? So if you could just be consistent with your actions, then that'll help me to know if I can trust you or not. And I think as people, a lot of times it's really difficult for us to be consistent, because we're usually battling through different kinds of challenges. And so if you're attempting to be consistent, and you can't uphold that, then what does that mean for your relationship? Does that mean that you're not trustworthy, or does it mean that you're not working on it? What does it mean? And so it challenges the relationship and doesn't ultimately build trust. Instead, you create fights around trying to be consistent. Um, Another idea is practicing patience and forgiveness. And out of all of them, I think that probably ultimately will be one that's the most useful for us to be able to implement the steps that I think are the most helpful. And so being able to practice patience and forgiveness is an important aspect of us building a relationship together. And here's the way I want you to think about it. Our relationships give us a chance to redo all the hardship that we've had in life. Our relationships give us a chance to redo all the hardships that we have in life. Now, what does that mean? Well, I'm coming to a relationship probably not whole. I'm coming to the relationship maybe the best that I possibly can, but I'm also coming to the relationship probably not in a space that is going to consistently be where I need to be because I've never done relationship before well, right? Anybody who's doing relationship well right now hadn't done well before in relationship because this is the first one, right? So just kind of think about that. Like that's an important way for us to be able to approach this idea of relationship. So if that's the case, well, what needs to happen? Well, there's a couple of things that need to happen for us to be able to switch it over. And the first one that I can think of is love. And I really think that if we're going to build on trust, or if there's going to be a different kind of marker for how we're relating to each other, there's going to have to be a certain amount of unconditional love. And this goes along with the patience idea. But instead of us looking at the behaviors and the transgression of somebody else in our relationship, can we create a culture of unconditional love? And the more we're able to do that, then the more useful it is, or the more we're able to build trust for one another. The second thing is, if we're not trying to battle what our partner is doing or is not doing, and we say, look, every day my partner has an opportunity to choose me. Every single day they have an opportunity to choose me. And if they're doing that, we look at that kind of thing, no matter what their struggle is. I just stay focused on the idea that, look, they have every single day, they have free will and they constantly choose me. And even more important, this is important, is I choose me. And if I could focus on me being able to say, look, I'm choosing me on a grander scale of trying to get better at relationships and trying to do relationships better, then your focus goes to that instead of you focused on what it is that your partner is or is not doing to build trust in the relationship. The third scenario foundation that I think is really important, and this kind of goes along with the forgiveness idea that we were talking about, is that and we're not coming to this relationship without hardship. We're not coming to this relationship being perfect people. We're coming to this relationship in an imperfect state, having faced tons of different scenarios. And there's going to need to be a lot of forgiveness and a lot of grace for the different situations that we are having to endure in our relationship. And so being able to have this kind of culture inside of our relationship starts giving us a culture of trust and understanding, so that we're not battling each other. And now all we have to do is battle ourselves, which is a important avenue to have inside of our relationship. The last thing that I really want you guys to be able to think about is our relationship is long-term. It's not short-term. So the more you can key into, look, my relationship is not just about this moment only. My relationship is a lot about what's going to happen long-term. If you could think more about that, then you're not so much caught up in the moment or the behavior or the transgression that happened right now, but how do we build as time goes on, right? So it's those four things that I think are useful for us to really be able to create trust in our relationship, because our focus goes to the right spot. Now we're no longer thinking like, what is my partner doing or what has my partner done? Instead, I owe it to myself to be able to be the most loving person I possibly can in my relationship, to be able to focus on forgiveness instead of trying to hold somebody else's feet to the fire, to be able to say, look, my partner chooses me at a high. most times it's, let's say that your partner gets upset at you or does something that limits the trust that you have or that you would naturally have in a relationship. Well, I'm sure that's a lot less time than what they're actually spending choosing you. And so us just being able to focus on the times they do choose us is important. And then finally, us being able to just realize that, look, we're long term in this relationship, and that's going to be the battle. Those focuses help us to develop a more trusting marriage because of the permanence and the idea that says, hey, we're here for each other and we're building together, and this is where we're moving long term. I think this is going to serve you guys if you can take a chance to look at this together and maybe even rewind it and go back and spend some time on it together to see how you could build those things in your relationship. It'll be helpful. We'll talk to you guys soon.